Hello, welcome level designers, ROM hackers, or other team recruits. Today I'm going to show you how to use Miyamoto. I'm just going to show you some of the basics. Now in order to get started, first you need to download the editor itself, Miyamoto. Now in order to do that, we're going to download it at this site. So just type in your internet browser, http://github.com/goddess7/Miyamoto. Just hit enter, and it'll take you into the level editor. Now go to releases, and this is where you're going to find the release. Now the current version is version 12 Shiny. There's a version for Linux, a version for Windows, and a data.zip folder. Now, I'm currently using Linux, so I'm going to go ahead and download this Linux build, but if you're on Windows, you can download the Windows build. And you're also going to want to download the data.zip. And I'll explain to you later what that's for. Okay, fine, I'll explain it now. Like, some things in the level may require some things to be put in the level, and that's why you need data.zip. So the things get put in the level so it doesn't crash when you load it. So it's good to have data.zip. Now let me just make a new folder in my documents. Just to prepare for this. Now, once everything's downloaded, go to your downloads. Put the files wherever you want. For example, I'm going to put them in that folder I just made. And you're going to want to extract both of them. Obviously, it's not going to be extract here, like mine, but the concept is still the same. You want to extract both of the files. Now, a Mac build is coming soon, most likely in the next release. You may not see it here, but you can download the source code and figure out how to run it yourself. Okay, once it's done, Control X the data.zip, or the data folder, sorry. Just paste it in the Miyamoto folder. So once that's done, you can just get rid of them. I'll just delete them in order to save space. But there. Now I have my Miyamoto folder. And in here, you'll see some things. This will just say tools and not Linux if you're on Windows. And here's the main Miyamoto executable. If you're on Windows, it's a .exe. But since I'm on Linux, it's called an ELF file. Now, those are essentially like exe executables, but for Linux. Now, just go ahead and double-click it. My bad. If you're on Linux, you may have to mark it as executable. You can also go into terminal and type in chmod +x file, but I just went ahead and modified the properties. So if I double click it, it should load Miyamoto. Okay, another thing you're going to need is the course res pack from New Super Mario U. Now, in order to get that, you can extract it from the game itself using a tool called DDD. I'll just Google here, DDD Wii U. And here we go. You can search a video on how to dump games using DDD. And it can dump all this. Pretty much you need the content folder of the game. And in that content folder, there will be the course res folder. And that is what you need because it contains all the levels in the game. Now you can just go ahead and open a random level. Let's say I want to open 1-1.scs. Go ahead, click open. And here we are. We just loaded the first level in the game. Okay, now this editor may look a little confusing or intimidating at first, but first here's some basics. Use 2 fingers on the touchpad to scroll around. I don't recommend doing that though because it's laggy. You can also use these bars on the right, and of course the bar on the left. I mean bottom and right. Now, there's also this level overview here that gives you a mini-map version of the level. And you can just click over here, see that point? And this blue rectangle represents the screen window that you're seeing here. You can just click anywhere and you'll see it, which is a pretty useful feature. Now, let's get into some of the things that are in play here. The first thing that is here is the tilesets tab. Now, tilesets have 4 slots. This is the first slot. Now, this is usually for things like question blocks, maybe some coins, brick blocks, or like just some random platforms like this, for example. And then the next tile set could be anything, and this is also usually anything too. Like these two usually can be completely different. And then there's a 4th tile set, but not all levels have a 4th, a 3rd. I'm pretty sure everyone does have a 2nd though. If it doesn't have a 2nd, that's really rare. But anyways, let's get into how these tile sets work. Now, I can select a tile and right-click it. Or just click it here, right-click in the editor, and I just placed a block. Hey! Just placed a block. And you can click on it, drag it around. If I place more blocks, I can select them all, drag them. I can only select some, move those around. And I could click backspace on selected tiles to completely delete them. Now, it works the same with any of these layers. If it's bigger than 1 block, it'll repeat itself after some time. But you can also use, but let's just say I want to fill this whole square with 4x4 tiles. Now, obviously you won't see the grid yet, and rather than the grid, it'll look something like this. But in order to get to the grid mode, click this, and then you'll get in the grid. Now let's just say I accidentally placed it like this, and I want it to be this. I can click this little bar on the right here, and resize it to whatever I want. And I can move it, do whatever I want with it. And it's the same concept on any of these tile sets. Now obviously, you can't just like do it like that and repeat them. Instead, you have to actually search for the tile you need. There, now we have a halfway decent platform. Now, in order to select another one, like say I want to select this tile over here and this tile, but not things in between, I would have to select this first, hold Control, and click that. Well, it should work. Oh, whatever. So, let me get into layers. Now, let's just pretend that, let's just get a random Koopa here. And let's pretend this Koopa Troopa is Mario. And let's just say that this is layer 1 selected. and I'm placing a brick block. Now, Mario is placed on layer 1. So, Mario here would be walking on the blocks since they're on the same layer. But let's just say I were to delete these blocks and place blocks on layer 2. Now Mario, if he were to fall, he would just fall right through them because they're on a layer behind him, and he can just walk right in front of them. But now here's the tricky part. Let's assume we have them on layer 0. If I were to put Mario here, he would show up behind layer 0. Obviously, the editor won't show it, but in game, if you were to have Mario go behind these blocks, he would not touch them, but rather go behind them. And I'll get into the certain things you can do with layer 0 later in the settings, but he will always go behind layer 0 objects. Okay, so that's how you work tile sets. Now, you can change tile sets by using puzzle. Like, say we want to edit the slot 2's tile set, which is this one right here. So you'd go to tile sets, edit slot 2, and I'll give you a brief tutorial on how this works. Let's say I just wanted to have this tile set show up in that blank tile set. So what I want to do is export this tile set. And let's just give it a random name like PA tile set random. Now don't worry, if nothing happens and nothing's responding, don't worry, you didn't break the program. It's just exporting the tile set, and sometimes this can take a little while. But when it's done, it'll be back in color again, and you can just X out of this tab. Now, tile set 4 doesn't exist, so let's use this tile set for tile set 4. So let's just say I want to edit tile set 4. And yeah, I'm going to create it. I'm going to call it. Now, the trick to naming this is you must call it PA and then the tile set slot number -1. Since we're editing 4, we're going to call it 3. Since 4 minus 1 equals 3, and then you're going to have an underscore 1-1, which is the level name. You put the level name then an underscore, and then the area number. Now this here says we're in area 1, so put 1, and that's how you create a tile set. Now this will come up with no tile set, obviously, because no tile set existed in PA 1-1. So let's just go import tile set from a file, and we can just go ahead and import that tile set we saved earlier. It will load the tile set that you saved here. Then we can just save and quit to save the changes. You mostly won't have to worry about these unless you're making custom tile sets. But you can use the export tile set to export a tile set you want for later, and import to import the tile set back. Now just hit save and quit. Now don't worry, it'll freeze up again because it needs to save the tile set, but that's completely normal. May take a little while, but that's okay. Once it's done, you'll see that we have this tile set is now officially in this tile set too, and we're free to make whatever things we want in this tile set. We could just make a dirt background, or we can make a platform. We can do whatever we want. let's just go ahead and move on to the next thing. Now, these things are sprites. Now, what sprites are, they could be like enemies, they could be things that help you, such as coins or just timers. Like, for example, lava is a sprite. You can place lava in this level, although lava does not go with the theme here. But you can totally have lava just show right here under the ground. I don't know why you'd want it here, but you can have it. There's all sorts of things, such as coin spawners, which can literally just spawn coins, and we'll get into controllers and more advanced tutorials. But for now, if you just want to place a Goomba, you can place a Goomba. Now this here, when you click on a Goomba, will show all this stuff. Now, some of these may not make sense to you, and that can be fine. But let's go to something much simpler. Like, let's say we want to place a Buzzy Beetle, one of those blue things. Now, not all sprites have images, and I'm trying to make as many as I can. In fact, I added this image not too long ago, actually. So, you can make it face right, and that'll make the Buzzy Beetle go right. You can have it go towards the player, which is most of the times to the left, but not always. You can make it upside down. You can put it in a shell. Oh, that's not right. By in a shell, it's supposed to be like down. I don't know why it's facing up though. But just go by what it's saying. You can put all sorts of things like urchins. Those are those spiky things under the sea. Now there's currently no image for that, but you could choose how many blocks it moves. You can choose whether it moves up and down or left and right, and you can do all sorts of things. Now the next thing here is a pretty important topic: entrances. Now, how entrances work are pretty much where you want the players to go through. Now, each level must have this thing, have an entrance at the beginning of the level. And it doesn't always have to be marked enterable, but I recommend it. Now, if you want to go in a pipe, let's show a pipe that you go through here. It must have an entrance. And if you want Mario to come back out of the pipe, but not back in, then you don't check enterable. Now, we'll go into exactly how these things work, types, but just remember for now that you must have an entrance 0 at the beginning of the level. Now, you can also view in sprites the current sprites. Like, say, you can hover over a sprite, double click it, and it'll show you where it is in the level, which is a pretty cool feature. Now, here's another thing: locations. Now, these are used for many different things. Like, for example, if you stand in this location over here, these coins will swing down. And there's also other things that just do a lot of, like, for example, if they're used for triggering events, like, say if you had Mario go in a certain location area, like, you can have something like a coin appear, or you can have a star coin appear. You can do anything, really. Or you can have a sprite pop out, such as Monty Moles. But let's just not worry. But you shouldn't have to worry about them too much. Now, the next thing here is path nodes. Now, what path nodes are there's usually one path node that is at the top of each zone. Why it's there, I'm not completely sure on why there's a path node on the top of each zone, but it's usually called path 1. Now, you might have also noticed this path node here, and this is, if you ever played New Super Mario Bros. U and paid attention to the levels, you notice that this is the path that Nabbit follows in the Nabbit chase. And it's not just for things like Nabbit and the weird path here at the top. It can be used to show how certain things move, like, for example, the spine coaster. The spine coaster is pretty much this coaster here, and it'll go up and then down, and a lot of things. Paths can be used for many different things, like the locations. Now, flags here are events. Now, certain controller sprites use the events, but I don't really see much purpose to these events, and you shouldn't have to touch them. Now, available stamps, this is probably was created to place down certain sprites and tiles quicker, but it was never made yet. And same with comments. They're meant to be like, you can just right click here and place a comment in the level, and then see if you sent the level to other people, they would see the comment, and they would understand what a certain thing does, or, for example. But pretty much, this is how you use the palette. Now that you know how to use the palette, let's go with some of the control functions here. Now, I'm just going to start on the very right. And you may have also noticed this thing right here. Now, this is a zoom bar. You can zoom out, you can zoom in, make the zoom the smallest it can be, make the zoom the most zoomed in it can be, zoom it in, zoom it out, and there's the exact same controls over here. And I recommend using this zoom setting, so then you can see things that you want, but you can always adjust the zoom if you need. Now, another feature here is the grid, as I showed you over here. This kind of gives you a blank background. You can also do it the line paper if you need, or you can have it this checkerboard. I recommend using the checkerboard since it doesn't really interfere with the level. It is useful for placing blocks and doesn't really give it a plain background look. Makes the editor look more interesting. Now let's get into changing backgrounds in the game. And that can be done by just clicking this. And you'll just be given a list of backgrounds, and you can change the background to whatever you wish. And you can hit OK to save changes or cancel to not. Now here's zone settings. Zones are pretty important, and I'll show you what a zone is. See this blue block box surrounding everything here? That is called a zone. Now zones, they're pretty important because zones mark where the camera can go. Like, for example, the camera will never go behind this point and will never go to the left of this or past the top of that. And it's important to note that if Mario is outside a zone, then he will die. So, for example, if he just over here, he's alive, but once his head is past this line, he's dead. And that's why zones are important. You can have more than one zone per level. For example, I go in here and create a new zone. Although I don't know what button is which, so I'm not going to play with them. So like, you can change the X position, move it to the left or to the right. Y position, move the zone up or down. Increase the width or the height of the zone. And there's some zone presets here that you can play with if you want to quickly set up a zone. Now, these here, for all these values, you can just hover over them and you'll tell them what they'll do. Okay, so how this works, this has to correspond with the layer 0. In normal mode, Mario will just walk behind them and that's it. But if you have the layer 0 spotlight, it'll show Mario. It'll have a spotlight around Mario if he goes behind the layer 0 object. But in full darkness, what that means, the screen is completely black, and only a small spotlight would be around Mario. Now just hover over all of these to show what they do. This obviously changes the background music. Don't touch the .id unless you know what you're doing. And that's pretty much zone settings. Now, area settings, you can completely ignore this tab, as that's not the way you change tile sets, and rather you use the tile sets thing I showed you earlier. Now, in settings, you could adjust a lot of things. Like these are unknown. And the main thing here is the timer. The timer is how many seconds Mario has to complete the level. And the timer here usually is when Mario enters the level. He'll have 400 seconds. Now the second timer limit is usually at the midway flag. Like if he were to make it halfway and then die, and he would spawn by the midway flag, and he would have this amount of time rather than the default 400s time. And those are pretty much area settings. Now these are useful tools here, like those location IDs. If I don't want to see it, like I want to get stuff behind it, like for example these coins, I don't have to move it. I can just hit don't show locations. Don't worry, it's not gone, because you can just hit that to re-enable it. Then you can just get rid of sprites, and then you can show them again. You could remove all the layer 2 objects, or all the layer 1s, or even all the layer 0s. Whatever you wish. Like for example, this is the layer 0 area right here, and if I want to see what's behind it, I can just click the hide layer 0, and I'll be able to see right through all of this stuff. Okay, now here's the basic clipboard tools. If I were to place, like, say, a brick block from earlier, I can select it, hit cut, and then I could just hit paste to paste another brick block. And it's the same concept here. I could copy it and select paste to paste it. And there we go. You just made a copy of something. Now the next tool here is a screenshot tool. And you can just take a screenshot of whatever your screen is right here. You can also take a screenshot of all of the zones in the area, or you can do it of just the one zone of your choice. Now this right here allows you to select any level in the game. Remember, you must have the proper level file in the course res file. Like for example, if I wanted to go to World 2-1, then I can just go ahead and load it like that. Now, the last thing here is a new level. And as you can guess, that'll just create a blank new level, just like that. Now let's go into some of the file menus here. But these are the last menus you need to learn before you're ready to begin making levels. Now the help feature here, this will help you. The About Miyamoto says what Miyamoto is, it's a level editor, and it also displays the credits of the people who helped get this thing done. This shows a copy of this file, and if you have need help getting or you forgot how to get the course res folder from earlier, this tells you how to get it by using DDD, and it gives you a link to that site. And that's Miyamoto, the person who inspired this editor. Well, that's the person I forked this editor after. If you don't worry, get what I'm meaning here. Don't worry about it. Now, the help contents is like more of a written tutorial. And this will tell you how to get started. And they're pretty useful for telling you how sprites work, objects, zones, entrances, areas. Trying to update it though, and some of it is a little outdated at the time of making this tutorial, but don't worry, I'm trying to update it. Now, the Miyamoto tips, they give you, this is for Reggie, which is, as you can tell, what this editor is based off of. And the Reggie editor was an editor for the Wii. But this Miyamoto here is for the Wii U. They're two completely different things, so even though they sound alike and look alike, they're not the same thing. Now, remember the tilesets tab from earlier. You can edit tilesets. You can go to the area settings, the zone settings, and this edits the background. But what's interesting here is you can add another area. You can even import an area from a level and delete the level you're in. These things you should not need to touch, but if you need to reload tilesets or reload the sprite data.xml for some reason, those are the buttons you go to. So you can change an area but by going into there. So this level's looking a little bit blank, so let's just add a new area from good old 1-1. Import area from level. Now we're going to go 1-1.scs and guess it doesn't want work. Oh well, but don't worry, that'll probably work in the future. It may not work now, and it was working before, but it doesn't seem to be working for some reason. Oh well, that'll be fixed in the future. But pretty much what it does, you can select an area from any level to add into the editor. So let's go ahead back in the editor. Now this is Miyamoto's face, if you didn't know what that was. And yeah, that's pretty much how adding, deleting, and importing areas work. Now in view settings, these are pretty much those layer 0, layer 1, layer 2. These, as of now, don't really do anything. These are to show sprites, the sprite images. Now, if you turn this off, rather than images, it'll just show all these blue boxes. And they're not exactly the most helpful thing in the world. Now in view, you can full screen the tab, except now I don't know how to get rid of it. That's a problem. Right. Yeah, let's disable full screen for now. Okay, so if you don't know how to get out of it, don't touch it. And these are the zoom settings, and that shows the levels overview, and that shows the palette over here. And you usually want the level overview in the palette. Now, a cool thing here is you can drag this stuff around. Like, say you want the level overview here, or you want it up here. You can make it bigger or smaller, whatever you wish, whatever you want. And like you saw earlier, I can drag this to the side over here, to the top, on the bottom over here. I could drag it pretty much anywhere I want. I prefer putting it on the top though. Now this can change areas you're currently in. Like for example, I can go to area 2. And if I want to go back to area 1, I can just go back to area 1 of the level. I'll get into more of how areas work in another tutorial. But edit is pretty self-explanatory. You could select all, you can cut, copy, paste, shift items. Now you can merge locations, but I don't know how good that thing works. So I do not know. You can swap and I do not know what these things do. Okay, now let me show you an interesting feature here. Let's say you're making a level and you're adding sprites or whatever, but you do not want to mess with the tile sets. You can just click freeze objects and you'll see that I will not be able to select any tile sets at all. But I can select the sprites, entrances, etc. But the objects, they're frozen. And I can unfreeze them, and now I can select and edit tile sets. Now, another important feature here is the file. Let's say you want to make a new level. Click this, open level by name. That gives you that thing from earlier. And there's also this feature, the open level by file. You can open a level file you save somewhere else. Let's say I put another file here or an src here. You can go here or here, do whatever. Okay, now let's get into some of the big stuff here. You obviously know what level screenshot does, and I don't recommend doing that. There's also an exit button here if you don't want to use this X, although I don't know why you would ever need this feature. So, pretty much there's the save level, and as you can guess, it saves the level. You kind of want to do that if you don't want to lose all your progress. And then there's the export level as. I'm not going to really get into how saving works, but for now, let's just say I'm saving this level rather than modifying directly. Like, let's just say I put like a coin here or something, and rather than saving to the level I want to save a new level somewhere else. Thanks to this editor, you can by using export level as. Just go to whatever folder you want. You could select an SDS or an src. Now the difference between the two is these files can be used in game, but these files cannot. But why you would ever want to use these things is srcs are super quick to save and are also pretty quick to load. These take a second longer to load, but these can take forever to save. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to call this hi.src. Now, this is here for a reason. This is important to the level you're editing. Like, let's say I wanted this level that I just made to replace 1-1. So I'd type world 1. This stands for world number, and this is the level number. So this is world 1-1. Now you may something see like 1-A, but that's not how it works in this editor. They're always numbers, and never will you have a letter. So it's world number, level number. So let's just say I'm editing world 2, level 3, world 2, level 3. So let's just go with 1-1, and then it'll save the level. Now we're editing high.sarc. Now you can go ahead and save it, and it pretty much works the same way. It may freeze up for a second, especially if you're saving SES. Now since I'm in an sarc, you can't just rename this to .ses and put it in game. No. That's not how it works. You have to put file, export level as, and then select SES and name it whatever the name is .scs you're replacing. But you don't have to. But if you're just editing levels for fun and don't plan on never playing them on the Wii U, you can just always keep them at sarc. And you can always use sarc. It's just that when you want to load them in the Wii U, you must save them as the SES. And that's pretty much the tutorial of showing you the basic features of Miyamoto. In the next tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create a level and give you some tips in doing so. Well, until next time, bye.